Okay, we have a first question. So I'd like to, Himani, would you like to take the question yourself, or should I just read it out?
Yeah, sure, I can ask.
Yeah, go ahead, Himani.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my question is, I'm new to journalism, like it's just 1 year in PR field. So as you have answered one question that how to make your pitch stronger. So when you are called to journalists, when you're new to this field, there are some journalists who don't answer your call, who don't even listen to what you want to pitch. Then in that case, what we can do, how we can pitch them, how we can build a strong connection with them.
Thank you, Himani. I think it's a great
Yeah,
question,
thank
and
you.
everybody is at the heart of it. This is what media engagement is. So,
Right.
anybody would like to take it? Minari, would you like to perhaps take it first?
This is one of my favorite pieces when I talk to my teams, and when I say teams, I mean whether it's on within the company or agencies, and a lot of my agency teams that have worked with me will say preparedness. A lot of times we take pitching too casually, and I think people think that, oh, I just have a vague idea of what I want to speak about, and I'm just going to call up a journalist and do it, and that doesn't work that way. I mean, I might have been working for a company for many years. I might know a journalist very well. I've now been in the profession. Even today, before I go speak to a journalist, in my head, I usually know what my first 5 lines are going to be. So being prepared, knowing exactly what the sharp key pitch is, and having a hook. Look, if people are not going to pick up your call, email. And think of it like a story. When I was a journalist, Nazdeen used to always tell me, but why are you writing this now? I need to know that in the first line. Why does the story matter now? And I have learned to shape my pitch exactly to that, because that's what a journalist is looking for. Why does that story matter now? And therefore, your opening of that note, if you're sending an email, must hook the journalist. I see pitches which give away the story completely. Don't give away the story. Keep intrigue, keep curiosity. Let the journalist want to speak to you, and be prepared. Be absolutely thoroughly prepared. There's no shortcut for being prepared.
Right.
And on a lighter note, Himani, sign up for the session that Moshmi and Parul are running on how to write for media right now. It's a great program.
Yes.
I did not ask Nikhil to say that, but thank you.
We need those programs so much. So thank you guys for doing that, Parul and Moshmi.
Yeah.
This kind of session is my first session.
I'll just add to that. Parul, you asked me about the media advisory that the PRCI did.
Yeah.
Launched today. It covers a lot of these points. It one gives you an update on journalists and publications and editions who've left and terminated or whatever, but it also gives guidelines on how to pitch, when to call a journalist, especially during COVID timings. A lot of deadlines have come forward. A lot of publications are closing much earlier. It actually gives you more details around all those aspects, when not to call a journalist, for example, right? So it gives a lot of those details, and that advisory has been sent to all the member firms of PRCI. So hopefully it'll be circulated down to everybody within the PR firms.
I think that'll be great. I've just put that out on chat that the advisory is available. PRC advisory is available. You can contact Anoop and of course Jyoti ma'am. And also I'm sure it'll be on the website soon. I have another question coming in from Shruti, which perhaps Subhash Prashanto can take up. Shruti, would you like to ask the question yourself? Okay, I'm going to ask it for her. Shruti wants to know.
No, I'm here. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead, Shruti.
So, actually, my question was more along the lines of, follow-ups. Like, after we pitch a story, now, like recently I pitched a story for an op-ed, and while the journalist got back to me, there wasn't any confirmation, and I was asked to follow up to see if they've checked the article, if there's any revisions that are required. And I think there came a point after which I started feeling I don't know what's the right word here, but it doesn't feel right, because at the end of the day, I know how I feel when someone is constantly following up, and I'm sure they feel the same way, even more so because there's so many people who get in touch with them. So what exactly is the protocol on follow-ups? Do you think that it's better if we call them every other day, or just a text would do, or what exactly, how do we deal with that?
Prashant is already smiling, so maybe you'd like to take that.
Yeah, so this is pretty much the norm. So welcome to this world. And, so most journalists, many journalists, maybe most, will not easily respond and may respond, but then, the response is, hi, okay, thanks, got it. And then, there's no further response days after that. But I think there are two things, again, I'd like to refresh. One is on relationships, okay? So if you have gradually built up a relationship where you're also communicating things which may be useful for the journalist's work and are not necessarily client and story related, then you have a relationship good enough to be able to pick up the phone and talk. Maybe you have conversations which happen outside the realm of that particular story that you need for a particular client. That's one. Second is your pitch good? So the thing is, if you look at it another way, and that's maybe a harsh filter. Sorry.
Jyoti, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, thank you.
So the filter is that if you have pitched, let's say, 8 or 10 stories, and you got back a response on 2 of them, and the other 8 were not good enough. They were not good enough in the context of that journalist and whatever. So that story you may have actually done your work, and it may well be the journalist who is subpar in response and things like that. But, I found that journalists who finally rise up the ranks, they do well, they do good stories, they are looking out for good stories. So if there's a good story, if there's a really good story which you think you have, and you've got to put yourself in the journalist's shoes and understand the audience and all of that, and you've pitched, okay, there's no real good reason that a journalist like that should not respond. There are many who won't, and I would not classify them in the ranks of the journalists who are going to do really well and who are hungry for stories and things like that. Okay, I know quite a few journalists who are all the time they're looking out, and whatever is the, even if it's a press conference for something, and a lot of journalists treat press conferences very casually because they're boring, they're a press release, etc. But quite a few journalists I know, they look out for other stories in that press conference. And this is something that in journalism 101, or when I've been talking to people in my team, in my former teams as journalists, tell them that whatever is the connect and contact, look for a story. The story may not be what the PR person is selling you or what the press release in the press conference is. And when you have that, you at least have a conversation. Okay. So I think if you look at it from that filter and see what is it that I could have done better with that pitch. Okay. That's one. Do I have a good enough relationship with that journalist or some other journalist in that group through whom maybe you can connect? Number 3, do you have a connect on social media? Is the journalist on Twitter, on Facebook, etc.? Are you connected with that person? There's a lot of interaction that happens. And again, it's not work interaction, but it's stuff that maybe for the journalist, it's work or whatever. I think these 3 things, if you do, then these are foundations on which you can, stand when you actually need some work out of a person.
Thanks. That was very
interesting.
And Minari?
I just wanted to add in there. I think there's sometimes, especially with some of our younger people in the community, this whole relationship thing, we end up being very transactional. But these are relationships like any other. These are relationships where you build trust and respect with the people through conversations which are not always about pitching. And therefore, if you're regularly talking to them about, I don't know, things of mutual interest, things that might be, which allow, for me, some of my best stories and best relationships are because there are journalists who call up to just, sound out for things which may have nothing to do with the company I work with, but just simply because they trust me. Or sometimes they'll call me just because they trust me to give a fair opinion, irrespective. So I think you build relationships with trust and care and nurture these, because then you have the respect. And I think that's really important. That it's not a transactional, let's just take them out for a drink or a coffee. It's not about a drink or a coffee or a lunch. I think it's about nurturing that. And I think that's really important. And the second piece, a very tactical one, to just, when you talk of a follow up with someone who's not responding, I think it's useful to ask them, hey, what will help you? Like what kind of information? What is it missing? Is there something we can do to help with the story? And sometimes, yeah, you just let go. So sometimes it's useful to ask, because sometimes I know journalists say that, oh, my editor is asking for this kind of information, or it got buried because some other news came and it's no longer topical. There could be different reasons why the story don't work. So try what you can with whatever additional inputs that you might be able to do, and otherwise let go and see if there's a better fit somewhere else.
Subhash,
Parul, yeah.
before we go into the next
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, so I go back to my experience of the past. When I first started in PR and I went for my first media round, and I asked the very same question that I think Himani is, sorry if I'm not getting the name right, but I think Himani asked that very question, that how do I pitch my stories? And in my first media round, I actually asked a journalist this very same question. What should be my plan A, what should be my plan B? And he said, always have I've got two things to tell you. The first thing is always have a great plan A. And the second thing is forget about plan B. If your plan A is not working, there's a very good chance that, you've sort of, lost me in all of that, you've lost me. The second journalist told me that, he told me that Chinese proverb that, if I have 10 hours to cut a tree, I will spend 9 hours in sharpening my axe. To take from there, 2 weeks later, I was given an account, to sort of work media around. And I remembered both of those pieces of advice. Have a fantastic plan A. And the second thing is make sure that your axe is really, really sharp. And how I ended up pitching the story at that point of time was, I went around asking my other colleagues, with more experience, etc., and they gave me names of journalists, and the whole thing was, "Isko phone kar, ho jayega." And the thing was, I was sort of having problems understanding the entire way of going about working the media at that point of time. So I reverted to, the thing that I knew best, and that was, to sit down and create an email which was concise, which was crisp, which had a subject line that would make someone drool. And I sent out that particular email to 6 journalists, just to just to beta test my way of pitching. Out of 6, 4 of them responded, and those 4 are still good friends of mine. I mean, over the years, we've built a very solid relationship, but that email was actually the founding stone of that relationship. And we ended up doing, stories with all 4 of them around that very concept that, I had sort of shared with them. And it was very, very thrilling. There's nothing more thrilling in PR than to, see an idea sort of go out there and stick, and, then next day make it to the papers. Point well taken about relationships, etc. But I think a lot of the hard work has to come from the PR person, from the person who's sitting on a concept and creating a concept which goes out to the media.
Thank you,
What Paroma said.
I'm just going to thank you for that. I'm going to bring in Malvika. I think keep your axe sharp and spend time on your pitch. Malvika, you have a question. Come in.
Yes, I do. Hi, hello everyone. I'm Malvika. I lead corporate communications for Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company. This is more of a point that I'd like to throw open for a discussion amongst all the panelists here. Like Minari mentioned, and I'm just going to build on that. The foundations of this industry are basically 3 pillars. There's the brand, there's the PR partner, and then there is the media, who we're trying to get them to write about the brand. Now, like Minari mentioned, the corporate communications team and the PR team or the PR agency need to act as joint partners. They're the joint custodians. One element that perhaps we can add to the training or work on the relationship building is also between the brand team and the PR agency. We need to understand that sometimes journalists may need to have a direct conversation with somebody in the corporate communications team. That doesn't mean that the PR agency feels that they're left out. If it's a conversation, if you're talking about building relationships, we need to be the same front. There may be 5 journalists that the corporate communications team has a better conversation with, and there may be some journalists that the PR agency is able to reach out to because they have a large variety of resources. I feel sometimes it becomes like a conflicting situation where certain people or certain agencies feel that it's like a threat. How is it that the brand is able to get better stories or they have a better relationship? But if we stop looking at each other as competition and start working on the same theme, we understand that we are actually the brand custodians, the relationship will be smoother. And again, going back to what happened, the episode, where the tweet came out and where there was immediate disengagement with the PR agency. Perhaps if a better relationship had existed, the conversation could have been dealt with differently. I'm sure you're aware of cases where the brand team has sometimes stood up and stood with the PR agency and said to the journalists that, yes, this may have been a mistake, but we stand by them, we will correct them, and we'll ensure that something like this does not happen in the future. And that's the kind of relationship we should all be striving towards.
Thanks, Malvika. Nikhil, Paroma,
Yeah.
Nitin, would you like to come in?
Paroma, I'd really like to share. I love the point about the need to build relationship both sides. PKR underlined the value and need with the media ecosystem, but the equal investment in creating a wholesome relationship with the client is onus on the agency team. And that also sometimes is the need of the hour to go in there and say, hey, you know what, I don't think we can do this. Or, hey, you know what, we've screwed up and this has happened, right? So the naming and shaming gets solved when you have that relationship. And I'll give you a live example. A senior journalist messaged me 2 years ago saying, this happened with your team. I can't believe it. You guys are supposed to be the best, right? But the fact is, it wasn't publicly named and shamed. It was sent in, and then you don't bury it. Then you call an all agency meeting and you don't name and shame the person, but you call out the incident and say that, this happened. This person unwittingly did this, which in this case was copying a paragraph, which is plagiarism, right? I mean, guys, you know how serious that is. No, I didn't realize. I just thought it's just one paragraph, just one paragraph. So putting the spotlight on it internally, not burying it, is really important. But equally having the confidence to go back to your client and say, hey, Mr. Client, this has just been brought to my attention by the journalist. We have done this on your behalf. Don't bury it there either. Have the confidence that your relationship is strong enough to weather that. So the relationship is both sides, with client and with media. And that's one of your get out of jail free cards.
Thanks, Paroma.
One thing here, I'll just take it a step further. Say, for the what you mean is client as the head of Corpcom or the head of brand or whatever you call, that person also is responsible for having a relationship of trust with his or her stakeholder. Many people who head the function don't enjoy the same credibility from the business leader or the top management team. Essentially, a lot of younger PR folks ask me that, how can I have a seat at the table? You don't have a seat at the table. You earn it. So please extend this understanding. The onus is as much as in you. Because if you don't get your business, if you don't have the trust of your stakeholder, you will never be able to translate that to your agency partner or to a journalist. And, I'm being really brutal about this because, that is it. The onus is on you. Learn the business, learn your stakeholders, earn the trust, and it'll come to that ideal situation that your CEO or CXO will not take a step without consulting you. So when you have that, it's easier to build a relationship of trust with the people who trust you. I mean, you need to trust. And, and this is generic. I think a thick skin is very, very essential in this profession on both sides, and a sense of humor.
Paroma, I have a reaction to your comment from Deepa. She says it's a perfect point on internal stakeholder management for the in-house communicator. Not many spend time building that. So clearly in-house communicators do agree with that. Minari, would you also like to make a comment on this? And then I'd like to come to Nitin and Subhash.
I think finally it's always about winning trust and earning that trust. And that holds true across everything, right? Yes, we need the trust for the leaders. We need the trust from the media. We need the trust with our agency partners, because I think actually that holds true across. That's the only way that we would really get good work done, because it's when leaders trust the PR teams within, to really understand what the narratives need to be, what the communications and the storytelling needs to be. When the media trusts you that you're not going to just give them spiel, and then the agency trusts you not to throw them under the bus easily, and therefore feel that, we talk about experimenting, we talk about being creative, but that needs to flow between our teams, just as our teams need to feel confident that we can try, so should the agency. Having said that, I'm a huge believer in process, and I think it's important to have the right processes and mechanisms so that these interactions between the teams help build the trust as well as the, the vetting and learning and all of it.
Thank you, Minari. We're getting a lot more questions on pitching, so I'm going to come to our PR firm speakers for after the next question. Kamakshi, would you like to ask the question yourself? If she's still online, Kamakshi? Okay, I'm just going to ask the question for her. Kamakshi is from PR Pandit. She says that keeping the current scenario in mind, it's very tricky to pitch, especially if it's around fashion or lifestyle or beauty or topics like these. How can we make sure that our pitch is strong enough while also considering the environment? I think that's a great question. Who would like to take that from the panel? Nitin, any chance you would like to?
I just wanted to add one point from the previous discussion. I think Malvika talked about relationships. I think one thing we should stop doing is relying on building relationships on back of our clients only, right? So relationships need to be built on their own, and that will only happen if we have knowledge. And I think, while we always tell everybody to read, I think unless we have the knowledge and therefore talk to journalists with that knowledge, you'll never be able to build a relationship, because I think a journalist is always much better well-read in most cases than some of us. On this point, yes, I think the environment is, you have to be sensitive. I think there is a clear feeling out there that we cannot, we have to be sensitive. Some influencers have also been, have been taken out for doing insensitive things or promoting products during this time. So we have to be sensitive. However, having said that, I think if your pitch is strong and you're pitching for a story which has a particular page and space for it, I don't see any harm in pitching that story. So, while we are all reading about COVID and probably 60-70% of the newspaper is filled with COVID stories, there is still that 10-20% space which is available for regular writing and regular things. And please pitch for it. I don't see any reason. If people are writing about it, why not? Why should we hide away from that?
Thanks, Nitin. Anybody else from the panel would like to, maybe PKR, on the general point of lack of editorial space currently, and how do we overcome that?
Absolutely. I think there is plenty of space for non-COVID, for example, non-COVID related things. You have to, of course, be sensitive about, not really misusing if somebody's died and, riding on a particular bandwagon, as it were. But if you've studied what that person is, this again goes back to understanding the journalist and what that person's doing, and understand that that person is doing other stories. That's one. I'd like to also, just going back to the relationship point, on one more thing, that, journalists like to connect with people, whether it's PR or anybody, who can help them in their stories. And too often the PR response is transactional, which is either, okay, it's coffee or something, or it is a specific story. And beyond that, there is very little engagement. But on other stories, can you help? I mean, whatever story that person's working on. And that's where I try to supplement what Nitin said about knowledge. It's not necessarily knowledge, but it's network. You can leverage network. You might have a network and connect to other people who are not necessarily part of the framework of your. So there's nothing stopping you from actually suggesting to a journalist that, hey, I know these other people who might help you with your story. They're not my client, but this is it. And if that happens often enough, the journalist turns to you. So I often get journalists reaching out to me for completely random stories, and they just want to know, do you know anybody who is a person like this, who is doing this, because I'm doing this sort of a story and it's not in my area at all, because they believe I have a network and I run these alumni groups, I run these other groups, and I'll be able to. So if you are able to leverage that and go beyond a transactional frame of reference and look at how you can help a journalist, okay. And the same thing I think applies, that this was mentioned earlier, to connect with the company. That also depends with the client side. That depends quite a bit on the maturity of the client, whether you're allowed to do that and how well you're able to interact with that. But you really have to be able to convince the client to be able to speak out on a wider range of things than just the very narrow messaging they want to push out. There are opportunities to speak out. And if you're able to do that, and it's not easy, I know a lot of clients have either they have other line managers and so on who simply do not speak, or they're not allowed to speak. But I think it's up to you as a PR agency and a professional to convince them of the value of building up that thought leadership in areas which are related, but not necessarily directly related to the message that the client wants to give out.
Thank you, Prashanto. That's a very clear-cut answer. I have two more questions, and then I'll take closing comments. I'm conscious that we've already crossed the 6 p.m. mark. I don't want to hold up people too much, and of course, the conversations will continue. There's a question from Deepa. Deepa, would you like to ask yourself?
Hi, actually, I was hoping you would ask. So basically, so this is a question from a friend. Sometimes you actually have to pitch a story which is almost like an advertising copy, right? It's not really news. What do you do? I mean, a lot of people have been talking about pitching, and I'm sure a lot of the young people on the call would like to hear from the panelists about what do you do in this case, because there is no story, there is no news, but you have your stakeholder just kind of pushing it down your throat saying, I need a story on that. So what do you do?
So that's I think a great question. And I mean, as even covering the PR sector, I receive a lot of copy, which is just a brochure and says, can you do a story on that? So who would like to come to this question? Subhash?
Yeah, so when you start by sensitizing the client that, what you're giving me is, you're basically sending me into battle with, one hand tied to the back. So, don't expect this to fly. It is very, very important that, you sometimes also stand, not sometimes actually, this is a very healthy practice. And I do think that, PR agencies need to sort of, also be a very healthy conduit between the client and the media. Because ultimately, you are managing the reputation of the client to the media. I mean, media is one of the important stakeholders out there. And hence, it is very important to sensitize the client that, if you start taking stories, that are not serious enough for the media person, you are actually going to end up wasting his time, which basically means that the brand is then going to be pitched in the wrong light. It is going to be seen in the wrong light by the media. And the pitfalls of that is something that you need to start by sensitizing the client. More often than not, I've seen that once you do that, once you start in a very empathetic way, start showing the client that some things sort of are acceptable, some things do not fly, some things are outrightly rejected. The client does seem to understand and then eventually back off from making unreasonable demands of the PR agencies. One of the things we did a few years back was to take, we used to work with quite a few clients at that time, who did not have either a strong agency background or, they did not have a strong Copcom background. You would have clients who had Copcom people who had 1 or 2 years of agency experience, and then they had maybe a year or so as corporate communications in some company. What we used to do in a very nice way is, take them on a bonding exercise where basically we would sort of, take them around with us and get them to meet a few media people. The whole idea was that it helped in terms of getting the team to bond with the client, and it also was a very good exercise where the client also met with the journalist, and we all got to have a cup of tea, cup of coffee in talking and exchanging ideas with the media. So that was also something that the clients back then appreciated a lot, because they then got an insight into, you know, what the current media, what the current media stance was on many issues regarding their industry, or for that matter, their
Thank you,
own brand.
Subhash. I'm going to bring in
I'm going to make one
Paroma
quick
and Prashanto on this very same question.
See, Parul, sorry, I was just going to just add one quick point on this one. Paroma, sorry, I'll just pass it back to you very quickly. Yes, we should push back absolutely as PR teams to leaders when asked to kind of push an advertising story, and that pushback is an absolute must. That's what will eventually earn trust. But let's not be gatekeepers who say a no. Be a problem solver is what I tell my teams. Ask the business teams, why do they need that story out? And therefore, what can help, as well as set very clear expectations of what PR can or cannot do. There are things which PR will simply not be able to solve. I think that's an important discussion, and then figure out, are there other ways where you can help rather than pitch a story or news release, but are there other things to do? So,
one of the things, one of the favorite things of mine is what I say to both our company and mostly our portfolio companies. PR can't fix business. Business fixes business. Our job is to tell a story. Our job is not to fix your business. So so I think three things are very, very needed in this profession. And this is really my closing comment also, that you have to be brave. Without courage to tell off, which probably I do a little too often, but then have the courage and conviction to tell off. It may not be very easy when you're young, but if you are coming from a point of conviction, people usually listen to you. Tell off, boss, client, agency, you must have, I learned it also from one of my Google bosses. Tell off when something can be done. Second thing is have a thick skin. It's applicable for any profession, particularly most so here. A lot of it is not really directed at you. To PKR's point earlier, it's not really directed at you. It's company, it's organization, industry, context. Learn to have a thick skin. Resilience is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself. A lot of in a lot of our profession, a lot of things are public, like this sacking, for instance. Very unfortunately, have a thick skin. Everything passes. And have a sense of humor. Learn to laugh at yourself. Sometimes, at your client, it'll really.
Thank you, Paroma. Over to Prashanto for his views on brochure-led stories.
So I think it's a challenge, and a challenge is always fun. So I don't know if you know, in art classes, for example, one type of challenge in installation art, etc., is given a piece of trash from a garbage heap, which is stinky, turn it into art. So I've done the same thing in journalism training, where I have brought up there's this fresh group of reporters, and we pick out a press release from the Mail, and the press release says Q3 results out. Okay, and it's not Reliance, it's just some random company. And that company expects that press release will be used. So I take that release and give it to these guys and say, how do you turn it into a newsworthy thing which you will carry? And it's a challenge. You really struggle with it. In this particular example, I think the last one I did, they were able to go into that company, figure out that there was a spike in revenue in a particular place, and then they found there was a very interesting app which they were using in some rural area. And we said, okay, can you get back a good picture of some, villager using that app, and, then build a 2-line story around that? Is that interesting enough? The same thing exercise can be actually done with this challenge, that if you get a story like whether it is Q3 result or something which is clearly trash, how can it be converted into a story where then your main headline is not maybe what they want? Maybe it's not Q3 results out. Main headline is something else, but in that message is also pushed through. Okay, of course, pushback and everything I agree with, but I think this is a reality of the profession we are in. It's the profession even media is in, that you get a lot of stuff which is, frankly, it's trash. But can you pick out diamonds out of that, or whatever, if that's a good enough metaphor? And that exercise is really useful in training up people. and also in trying to tell the client, okay, if your objective is to get this published, if you send this out to 20 people, they're going to all trash it. So therefore, how can we redo it with visuals and things like that? So the story is different. It's interesting enough to be used, and maybe your message can get out as a sideline.
Thank you, Prashanto. I'm going to take last comments from everybody, and then we can close. Thank you to all the participants who've been really joining and sharing their views on chat as well. If you still have a last comment, please feel free. Paroma, was that definitely your last comment, or can we come to you for one last comment?
No, I would just really say be brave, have a thick skin, and have a sense of humor. It will help you succeed.
Thank you, Paroma. Minari, what is your one-line takeaway for the participants going forward?
Look for impact. And that can be done by being creative, but at the same time having scalable mechanisms. And know everything about the business. What you share finally as a pitch or a story will be tip of the iceberg always. Know your business in and out to be a problem solver. Other than that, you can't, most of it is not going to, I hear a lot of times young people say, oh, but that's not PR worthy, so I'm not going to in that meeting. Absolutely know everything.
Thank you. I have one final question from Anup, and he's saying that why do journalists always refer to PR in a very negative way, whereas they do mention marketing and advertising in a more positive way? And Anup, who really helped me actually get this whole story started, he was the one who brought this Neerja Birla tweet to my attention. So what he's asking that what can you do to, why does that happen? Why do you think, of course there's a perception problem, but why is journalism and marketing cooler when they pitch and PR is not?
That's a topic for a whole other seminar session. Not a last question.
Not a last question.
For sure.
So Nikhil, what is your final takeaway for our participants going forward?
So did you say Nikhil or Nitin?
I said Nikhil.
Nikhil, okay. Mine is, I'm loving the fact that I can bravely tell my team and my clients, I don't know. Because I genuinely don't know. This whole COVID thing, every week, life is changing so rapidly. So I'm bravely saying, I don't know, but I'm following it up with, I'll find out. And I'm loving the freedom that's giving me to try out new stuff, to do new things. So put in the preparedness, put in the homework, and admit when you don't know, because most of the time we don't know what's going to work or what's not going to. So experiment, have fun, but find out, do the homework. Yeah, that's my closing remark.
Nitin?
Yeah, I mean, I think for PR firms, I think train, get people to be as sensitive as possible. For clients, I think work together as a team. I think it's been said enough. And I think finally for PR executives, read. That's it. 3 things.
Subhash?
My message would be to people who are working in teams is to come together. I know I'm sounding like the Beatles, but the times are such that it is very important that people within a team actually come closer, come together, learn to share, learn to talk to each other, help create a safe space for each other, create an environment where questions are asked, create an environment where there is room for creative fiction. And that basically, in a microcosm will actually help not just those individuals, that team, but also that agency, sort of move forward, so to speak. And that basically is it. That has been my, golden mantra all these years. And that is how I have been building teams all this while. So very, very important to create that sort of a flat organization where, people are close to each other and feeling very, very safe.
Thank you, Subhash. A final word to Prashanto. What's the one takeaway you'd like the audience to remember?
So I think I'll stick relationships on both sides, on media, client side, leverage information, leverage your network, and see how you can be useful to a journalist and outside the framework of the transactions, which are basically your stories. That's really my one line takeaway. I'd just like to add one more line on the question that was asked. The fact is that there are a lot of lousy pitches out there. Many of them are just press releases or mass mail. I have a flood of these in a particular folder. Now it's a fairly low bar. It's not difficult to stand out there. So if you can actually make yourself useful and you are able to project a little bit of domain expertise, or the fact that you have a network and you can help, etc., then standing out from that very low bar is not very difficult. And that's a positive side of that negative perception of PR.
Thank you, all of you, for joining. My final take on this is don't take anything personally. That's something I've learned after 25 years in journalism. Never take anything personally. The second thing I would say is that PR professionals do have their own power. You're exchanging information. You're the gatekeepers of information. In that sense, you do hold the power in that way. So exchange of information goes a long way in building relationships. Don't share just about your client, share sector information, share information about the business without expectation of a story. That goes really a long way in building a good, strong relationship, and don't take anything personally. Thank you all to our speakers and attendees. It's been a wonderful discussion. We hope to have many more of these kind of discussions going forward. It's been a great Tuesday evening. Wishing you all a wonderful week ahead. Thank you all.
Thank you, Parul. I think this was a very good. And thank you all my co-panelists and the audience.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Parul.
Bye.